Hello, fellow seekers of wisdom. Today, we will explore something that has the power to transform your life and lead you toward true personal growth: the art of reflection. Now, before we dive into this topic, allow me to share a personal story that truly captures the essence of why reflection is so powerful. Many years ago, I encountered a man who had spent years as a soldier. Let's call him Marcus. Marcus had seen battles, survived hardships, and faced challenges that most of us could only imagine. He was a strong man, physically and mentally. But what truly struck me about him was not his strength or his endurance. It was his deep sense of calm, his wisdom, and his unshakable presence. After years of war, when Marcus returned home, he found himself surrounded by silence. The battlefields had been noisy and chaotic, but now there was only the stillness of his quiet home. At first, he struggled with this peace. He found himself restless, like many of us do when we're left alone with our own thoughts. But instead of running from this discomfort, Marcus decided to embrace it. Each evening, as the sun set, he would sit quietly by his window, gaze at the horizon, and reflect on his day. He didn't judge his thoughts, nor did he try to force answers. He simply allowed himself to observe his actions, decisions, and emotions. He asked himself questions like, what did I do well today? What could I have done differently? What am I truly grateful for? At first, it was difficult. His mind would wander, often pulling him into memories of the past. But with time, he noticed something incredible happening. Through this simple act of reflection, Marcus began to understand himself better. He noticed patterns in his behavior, some good, some not so helpful. He saw how his fears sometimes dictated his actions. He recognized the moments when his ego got in the way of his kindness. He also became aware of his strengths, of how resilient and compassionate he could be. By reflecting daily, Marcus began to improve not just as a soldier, but as a human being. He became more intentional in his decisions, more at peace with himself, and more connected to the world around him. His growth didn't come from the battles he fought, but from the quiet moments he spent examining his own heart and mind. Now, Marcus' story highlights the power of self-reflection. It's not in the dramatic moments of life where we find the deepest insights. It's in those quiet moments when we dare to look within and truly examine our own thoughts and actions. Today, we will explore how you can practice the art of reflection, how it can lead to personal growth, and why it is so essential for anyone on the path to wisdom. You see, life moves quickly. Days turn into weeks, weeks into months, and before we know it, entire years have passed. In the midst of this constant movement, we often lose sight of our actions, our thoughts, and even our true desires. We go through the motions of life without ever pausing to ask ourselves the important questions. Am I living the life I want? Are my actions aligned with my values? Am I growing as a person, or am I just existing? Without regular self-examination, it's easy to drift off course. Imagine you're a ship at sea, and reflection is your compass. Without it, you may still sail, but you won't know where you're headed. And worse, you may end up far from the destination you truly desire. When you take the time to reflect, you become the captain of your own ship. You gain clarity. You start to notice the small, subtle ways in which you might be self-sabotaging, avoiding growth, or letting fear control your actions. And most importantly, you can course correct. Let me share a personal experience. There was a time in my life when I felt stuck. I was moving through the motions, busy with work and obligations, but I wasn't truly living. I wasn't happy, nor was I growing. Every day felt like the same day on repeat. One evening, I decided to sit down with a journal and reflect. I asked myself some uncomfortable questions. Why am I feeling this way? What do I really want? What am I avoiding? At first, the answers didn't come easily. It was like trying to navigate a foggy landscape. But the more I wrote and reflected, the clearer it became. I realized that I had been holding on to certain beliefs about myself that were no longer serving me. I was letting fear dictate my choices, fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of stepping into the unknown. This realization didn't come from someone else's advice or from reading a book. It came from the simple act of looking inward. From that point on, I made reflection a regular practice in my life. Each week, I set aside time to journal, to meditate, and to ask myself the hard questions. It has not only helped me grow, but it has allowed me to stay true to my values and my purpose. Now, let's talk about the benefits of reflection. Why should you make this a regular practice in your life? Self-awareness. Reflection increases your self-awareness. You begin to see yourself more clearly, the good and the bad. You notice patterns in your behavior, which helps you understand why you do what you do. Emotional regulation. When you reflect, you start to see your emotions for what they are, temporary. You become less reactive, less controlled by anger, fear, or frustration. Instead, you learn to pause, breathe, and choose a more thoughtful response. Improved decision-making. When you understand yourself better, you make better decisions. You no longer act out of habit or impulse. Instead, you act with intention, making choices that align with your values and goals. Personal growth. Self-reflection leads to growth. By identifying your strengths and weaknesses, you can improve in areas where you need to and celebrate the areas where you're already thriving. Greater peace of mind. There's a certain peace that comes with knowing yourself. You become less concerned with external validation and more content with who you are. This peace allows you to navigate life's challenges with more grace and resilience. So, how can you begin to practice the art of reflection? Here are a few simple techniques. Journaling. This is one of the most effective ways to reflect. Set aside a few minutes each day or week to write about your experiences, thoughts, and emotions. Don't worry about being perfect, just let the words flow. Over time, you'll start to see patterns and gain deeper insights into yourself. Daily questions. At the end of each day, ask yourself a few reflective questions. What did I do well today? Where could I have improved? What am I grateful for? What emotions did I experience today, and why? Meditation. Reflection doesn't always have to involve writing. Sometimes, it's enough to sit quietly, close your eyes, and observe your thoughts without judgment. This can help you become more aware of your inner dialogue and your emotional state. Seeking feedback. Sometimes, others see things about us that we don't see ourselves. Don't be afraid to ask trusted friends or family members for honest feedback about your actions, decisions, or behavior. Periodic life reviews. Every few months, take a step back and review your life as a whole. Are you moving in the direction you want to? Are your actions aligned with your goals and values? If not, what changes can you make? If you're finding value in these lessons on personal growth and reflection, consider subscribing to Students of Wisdom. By joining this community, you'll continue to learn timeless teachings that can help you on your path to wisdom. Together, we can grow stronger and more mindful, step by step. In Stoicism, reflection is essential to living a virtuous life. The Stoics, like Marcus Aurelius, would engage in daily self-examination. Marcus Aurelius, the great Roman emperor, would write in his journal each night. These writings became what we now know as his Meditations, a timeless work filled with wisdom on self-reflection. In one entry, Marcus writes, "Look within. Within is the fountain of good, and it will ever bubble up, if thou wilt ever dig." This idea of looking within is at the heart of Stoic practice. Marcus Aurelius teaches us that the true source of wisdom, peace, and virtue lies within ourselves. But to access it, we must take the time to dig through self-reflection. The Stoics believe that the only thing we truly control in life is ourselves. Our thoughts, our reactions, our decisions. Everything else, the events of the world, the actions of others, even the circumstances we find ourselves in, are outside of our control. This is why reflection is so crucial in Stoicism. It helps us evaluate what is within our control and what is not. When we reflect, we learn to distinguish between the things we can change and the things we must simply accept with grace. There's a story I often share with my students that beautifully illustrates the power of reflection. There was once a traveler who found himself in a dense, dark forest. Night was falling, and the traveler had no map, no guide, and no idea which direction would lead him to safety. Panic set in as he stumbled through the trees, trying to find his way. But then, as darkness fully enveloped him, he remembered that he had a lantern in his bag. He pulled it out, lit the flame, and suddenly, everything changed. The light from the lantern didn't reveal the entire forest, nor did it show the final destination. But it illuminated the path right in front of him. With each step, the light allowed him to see a little further, guiding him out of the forest, step by step, until he was safely home. Reflection is like that lantern in the darkness. It doesn't always give us all the answers or solve all of our problems instantly, but it provides enough clarity to take the next step. And when we reflect regularly, those small steps add up, and soon we find ourselves navigating life with far more wisdom and intention. Let's take a moment to talk about emotions. We live in a world where many of us are told to suppress our emotions, to toughen up, and push through life without acknowledging what we feel. But emotions are powerful indicators. They tell us when something is wrong, when we need to pay attention, or when we're out of alignment with our true selves. However, emotions can also be misleading. If we're not careful, we might let anger, fear, or sadness drive our decisions, leading us down paths that do not serve us. This is where reflection becomes key. By reflecting on our emotions, we can ask ourselves questions like, why did I feel that way? What triggered this emotion? Was my reaction helpful, or did it cause more harm? When we reflect on our emotions, we give ourselves the space to understand them without being controlled by them. This helps us avoid impulsive decisions based on fleeting feelings and instead make thoughtful, deliberate choices. I would be remiss if I didn't talk about failure. Many people avoid reflection because they fear confronting their mistakes and shortcomings. It can be painful to look back on things we regret or on decisions that didn't turn out the way we hoped. But let me remind you, failure is not the enemy. In fact, failure is one of life's greatest teachers, if we're willing to reflect on it. One of the most important lessons I've learned through reflection is that failure is rarely final. It is often a stepping stone to growth. The key is to ask ourselves, what can I learn from this experience? When we reflect on our failures, we transform them from obstacles into opportunities. In fact, some of the greatest successes in history were born out of reflection on failure. Take Thomas Edison, for example. When he was asked about his many failed attempts to create the light bulb, he famously said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." Through reflection, Edison saw each failure not as a defeat, but as a lesson, a necessary part of the process towards success. So, the next time you face failure, don't run from it. Sit with it, reflect on it, and ask yourself, what did I learn? How can I grow from this? In this way, you transform failure into a tool for personal growth. Another key aspect of reflection is gratitude. In our fast-paced world, it's easy to focus on what's missing in our lives, the things we haven't achieved yet, the material possessions we don't have, or the goals we haven't reached. But when we take time to reflect on the things we do have, we cultivate a mindset of abundance rather than lack. Gratitude is a powerful force. It shifts our perspective and helps us recognize the blessings that are already present in our lives, no matter how small they may seem. When we reflect with gratitude, we build resilience. We become more content and less dependent on external validation for happiness. Each day, take a moment to reflect on what you are grateful for. It doesn't have to be grand or profound. It could be as simple as a kind word from a friend, the warmth of the sun, or a meal that nourished your body. Over time, this practice of gratitude reflection will shift your mindset and increase your overall sense of well-being. By now, I hope you can see how powerful the art of reflection can be. But like any art, it requires practice. You don't become a master overnight. Instead, you must build the habit, little by little. Here are a few tips for making reflection a daily habit. Start small. You don't need to spend hours reflecting each day. Even 5 or 10 minutes can make a big difference. Begin with short sessions of self-examination, whether through journaling or simply sitting quietly with your thoughts. Create a routine. Make reflection a part of your daily routine. For example, you could spend a few minutes reflecting in the morning to set your intentions for the day, or in the evening to review your actions and emotions. By tying reflection to a specific time or activity, you're more likely to stick with it. Be kind to yourself. Reflection is not about beating yourself up over past mistakes. It's about learning and growing. So, approach your reflections with kindness and curiosity, not judgment. Be patient. Like any skill, reflection takes time to develop. Don't expect immediate results. The insights will come, but they will come slowly, as you build this practice into your life. Celebrate your growth. Take time to reflect on how far you've come. Sometimes we're so focused on where we're going that we forget to acknowledge the progress we've made. Celebrate the small victories and the personal growth you've experienced along the way. The art of reflection is not a one-time event. It's a continuous, lifelong journey. As we grow, our reflections deepen. The more we examine ourselves, the more we understand. The more we understand, the more we grow. We must remember that life is a series of moments, choices, and lessons. Each day provides us with the opportunity to reflect on where we are, who we are becoming, and what we can do to live in greater alignment with our values. So, as you go about your day, I encourage you to pause. Take a moment to reflect. Ask yourself the important questions. Am I living the life I truly want? Am I acting in alignment with my values? What can I learn from today? In this way, you will not only grow, but you will also become more intentional, more peaceful, and more wise. If today's lesson on reflection resonated with you, I invite you to make this practice a regular part of your life. Join our community by subscribing to Students of Wisdom for more insights and teachings that will help you on your journey toward personal growth and inner peace. Together, we can walk the path of wisdom, one step at a time. Thank you for joining me today, and remember, true growth starts from within. As you finish watching this video, I'd like to leave you with one final thought to reflect on. What will you do today to begin your own journey of reflection? Will you start journaling? Will you set aside a few minutes to meditate? Whatever you choose, remember that every step, no matter how small, is a step toward greater understanding and personal growth. Thank you, and may your reflections lead you to wisdom,